Hello, and welcome to episode 3 of the Wizard of Paws podcast, the greatest animal show on the All Indiana Podcast Network. We are joined, first off, I'm River, and of course,
I'm Dr. Jace.
And today we are joined by Katja Craft. She is our wildlife rehab expert and runs Paws, Wings, and Other Things. And what are we here to talk about, Dr. Jace?
We are here to talk about pumas.
Stop making up animals.
Pumas do exist, okay?
In Indiana, though?
Actually, a few days ago, there was a cougar spotted in Carmel.
I spotted a lot of cougars in Carmel.
Yeah, they're all driving BMWs, right?
I don't know what they're driving. I'm not looking at the cars.
All right. The puma's scientific name is puma concolor, and the DNR website states that their only confirmed sightings in the state were fall 2009 in southern Clay County and in spring 2010 in northern Greene County. Possibly these were the same animal, but Indiana has no breeding population of mountain lions. However, data collected by the Cougar Network, and no, not those BMW driving cougars.
Hold on, I got to Google Cougar Network.
Other states over the past decade suggest the mountain lions appearing outside their traditional western range, and these are usually young transient males. And for some information about mountain lions, they are about 80 to 160 pounds. They're about 7 to 8 feet long without their tail. With their tail, it's an additional 2 to 3 feet. So their tail is half the total length of the mountain lion. So although we are going to discuss some mountain lions, I'll have Katja talk about some other stuff here in a little bit. The prospect of running into a mountain lion in Indiana is very remote. And the likelihood of them roaming cities where humans are extremely slim. But there are precautions you can take. Do not approach it and give it away to run away. That's the most important thing. Okay, give it space, let it run off.
So don't go.
Yeah, don't go. Don't say, "Here, kitty, come here. I want to rub them belly beans." And don't feed them. Do not run. That is the most important, right, Katja? Do not run away.
Unless you're like 2 steps from a car.
Yeah. If you're 2 steps from your car.
Turns you into
prey.
Food.
Yeah, running turns you into prey. Instead, you got to stand still and make direct eye contact while facing this type of animal. Do not crouch down. Do not bend. Do all you can to appear larger. Raise your arms open, your jacket, wave your arms, and speak firmly in a loud voice. Hold your children near you, okay? The DNR website said to hold your pets near you, too, but I think that'll make you a target even more, especially if it's wanting to kill your little tiny dog. But
throw the dog and run.
No, do not throw the dog and run. That's so rude. How rude. And if you do happen to get attacked, you fight back, sticks and stones, and break their bones. No, I'm just kidding. 6 stones, anything other, anything that's available. Honestly, I think any guns lesser than a 7.62 caliber weapon is not going to be feasible to harm it. It's just going to make it mad. So do not shoot a mountain lion with your 9mm or 22.
But they're really just going to try to get away more than anything.
Legally, they're a protected mammal in the state of Indiana, and it's only legal for a resident landowner to kill them if they are causing property damage. And if you want to hire someone else to come on your property to kill the mountain lion, you have to get a permit from DNR first. And any mountain lion killed in Indiana must legally be reported to the DNR wildlife biologist or the DNR law enforcement. You cannot keep this animal. You cannot take its fur. You cannot do anything without the permission of DNR. When it comes to mountain lion tracks on your property, if you think you're seeing mountain lion tracks on your property, their tracks are always about 3 to 4 inches in length and 3 to 4.5 inches in width. They're round, often wider than they are long, with no claw prints that you would normally see in canid tracks such as coyotes and wolves, or coy wolves. Since we're in Indiana, anything east of the Mississippi River is a coy wolf. Mountain lions are a large, slender cat with a long rope-like tail. Adults are a uniform tan or tawny color with a white or cream-colored chin, and their undersides and inner legs. There are many times that we get missed sightings of animals where people mistake a dog as a mountain lion. It's happened before. Domestic animals and even bobcats also get mistaken for mountain lions sometimes.
And put this in perspective, when I first got this, I'm like, hey, there's something bothering my chickens. what do I do to keep like foxes and stuff? You're like, just send me a picture of what you have. Like, I'll tell you it's probably just some dog or something. Like, they're like, wait a second.
He showed it to me and was like,
Huh.
I was like, that is a mountain lion. And I said, where was this taken? And I'm not going to tell you yet. You just need to tell me what it is. And I said, it's a mountain lion. And I said, did you ask Katja too? And he said, yeah. And she said it was a mountain lion too, didn't she? She said, yeah. And I said, where was it? He said, Carmel. I said, Carmel? Oh, where was it found? It was at...
It was around the area of US 31 and Clay Terrace.
So if you have chickens or if you have a dog pen for your domestic animals, we suggest anything with 12 gauge welded steel wire or thicker. So you're talking 12 gauge, 10 gauge, in gaps no bigger than 2 inches by 4 inches in length. That way, if it does happen to be a big cat, it's not going to be able to reach his foot through there. So you go Tractor Supply, you get cattle panels, they have a 4 inch by 4 inch gap in it. A mountain lion's going to be able to reach his paw in there and grab your birds. Chicken wire, that stuff is a waste of time. And not only that, your dog, if it decides it's going to chew it up, is going to die. So we really suggest
make sure the top is covered.
You got to cover the top
People always
and the bottom.
forget to cover the top.
Yeah.
Many animals that go after chickens, including foxes, mountain lions, coyotes, they all climb.
They will climb, definitely. I've seen red foxes and gray foxes have retractable claws. Red foxes and gray foxes both can climb trees. So if your dog enclosure is near a tree, you're just inviting them inside the dog enclosure.
It's easy enough to climb a fence,
It's
too.
easy enough to climb a fence on its own, but if there's a tree that it can climb and then jump down into the enclosure, your small animals are just... It's...
Even my fat ass can climb a fence.
And it's not just that birds of prey get in it and kill chickens and take chickens and people get upset. It's like, well, it's kind of your job to secure your animals, not the wildlife.
Exactly. I made a comment on Facebook yesterday that humans have this mentality, human mentality 101. If it's on my property, then it deserves to die. Nothing but humans has the right to live in this world, and that's the way that humans have been for decades. Because what do? We tear down their territory to build not only our shopping centers and our malls, we tear down the trees, we ruin natives and kill many native species of birds, and I mean, that's what happened with peregrine falcons. So, like, they've been endangered for a long time, and Indiana had to literally put them on a protected list. And remember that pastor at that church when I told him that there was protected falcons in the trees and I told him not to cut them down? God struck that man down. I am not even going to joke with you on this. That man was cutting those trees down regardless of the fact I told him there was protected birds back there, and he fell off a ladder, broke his neck, and died. Okay? That is God's karma right there getting you back.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like to me.
I'm glad you didn't blame the birds.
I am never going to blame the birds, okay? It's always man. Man has the decision on whether or not to do the right thing or the wrong thing. And I am extremely passionate about this, and I will say humans can fuck off and animals can take over this world. I don't give a crap if they enslave the rest of y'all. I will just be the advisor to the animal king, okay? All right, so on to some more realistic things. Well, there are some questions I wanted to ask Miss Katja about some experiences that she's had working with her hands with these lovely, beautiful animal species that we have in the state of Indiana. And what kind of species do you normally take in, Miss Katja?
I take in any mammal, any bird, besides waterfowl. I'm not licensed for waterfowl, but anything from baby mice all the way up to bobcats and everything in between.
We get emails all the time for house mouse. People catch a mouse in their house.
I currently have 3 babies.
We, my cats have been in my house. I don't put out baits and traps because we have domestic animals and we also house wildlife as well. So I don't put out bait traps or anything like that because my cats.
They do a good enough job catching them.
Yeah, they do a good enough job catching them. So what we noticed over the past couple of years, there is a color mutation of mice that are, breeding in our house that are white and they have black eyes. They're not albino. What are the mutations on house mouse or wild mice in general? Have you ever seen a white one?
Could be they somewhere bred with a white mouse somewhere along the way.
Okay. So they
that someone released a feeder mouse
or it got out
and it got into the wild population.
Okay, so the color genetics. I also have seen piebald wild mice that are normal
Yeah.
colored and have white legs. From what I was reading, is like a normal color mutation that can pop up every once in a while. And I was reading that white mice with black eyes are also called leucitic mice. They can also pop up in a wild population as well. And what are your
Be,
opinions?
it has a lot to do with nutrition.
Nutrition.
Because nutrition always is first seen, or malnutrition is first seen in the fur.
Okay.
And the coloration. It just means that the color pigmentations aren't right. Like last year, for instance, I got 4 red squirrel babies, and they were all white.
Were they albino
and
or
after
leucitic?
putting them on the proper nutrition and feeding them the proper foods, they all turned color. Their normal red
Okay, so they were
coloring they should have had.
They were not eating a species-specific diet, and it affected their hair color. So this wasn't a genetic issue, like it is when we see wild red foxes. Sometimes, every once in a while, you'll see a leucitic red fox or an albino red fox in the wild. But when it comes to the foxes that we have that are captive bred, it's based on their genes, and stuff like that. So, I mean, I can see a random color mutation happening at some point because I've seen melanistic, and I've seen many melanistic wild mice, wild squirrels in Indiana, even melanistic rabbits.
Yeah, but I think, again, still a lot of it has to do with nutrition, considering we're taking away their habitat, which also means we are taking away their food sources. And if they just rely on one certain type of food and not getting a variety, then it can cause the discolorations and such.
Okay, so and it also it affects the texture of their fur, from what I've been reading in scientific studies. So
most of the time it does, yes. But I always determine whether it's genetic or whether it's because of nutrition by just feeding them a nutritional balanced diet. And usually within 2 weeks, if it's just the diet, then I see a change in the fur and in coloration. And if it doesn't change color, then it's just like you said, melanistic or piebald. But the amounts we see, I really blame a lot of that on malnutrition versus it's just been a fluke of nature.
Okay, so if it's a fluke of nature and a genetic thing, and you get in a white or an albino animal, those animals obviously can't be released back into the wild because they normally die within 6 months if they don't die when they're babies. What do you guys do with that?
They're still releasable.
They're still releasable?
As long as the color is not a reason for not releasing.
Okay. So
unless they show other symptoms or issues, like a lot of albinos are blind as well. So that would be a case to be an educational animal. But as long as they can see and hunt and do what their species does, there is no reason to keep them just because of color.
Just nature doing nature things.
Nature doing nature things, exactly. Can you share an effective method that you've used to detect signs of illness, disease, or injury in animals?
Say that again?
Can you share an effective method that you have used to detect certain signs of disease and illness or injuries in them?
Pretty much, how do you tell?
Well, I have a veterinarian that comes and looks at all my wildlife for me.
So they come out on site?
I also like, for instance, to discover parvo or distemper, we do snap tests.
Yes, we do those on dogs too.
But I mainly leave it up to the vet.
Outstanding.
I mean, obviously, I can determine certain issues and can tell the vet, okay, I think this is this and this, but in order to actually determine a disease or anything, it needs a vet.
Exactly.
And that's just really my thing. I wouldn't give any medications to any animal without veterinarian advice.
Yep, I agree.
And a lot of people are starting to give wildlife their home meds and stuff, and that really needs to stop.
Exactly.
You can't just put medication that has been prescribed, especially human medication, because most of those medications aren't even safe for animals, out in food and possibly medicate all kinds of animals where you wouldn't even know if the sick animal is eating the medication you're putting out there, or if it's the right dosage and all those things. Because, I mean, we determine dosage by weight and development of the animal and age, apparently, obviously. And these people are putting out mite medication and flea and tick medication for wildlife. I know the heart is in the right place, but you can't just medicate animals.
Yeah, that's the main question I get a lot. Way. I get a lot of questions about foxes with mange and stuff like that. And
yes, and the issue with that is they don't just get mange, poof. Mange is caused that they have already an underlying condition, which means they have a compromised immune system, and that is how the mites take hold. So if you're just treating the mites, you are not fixing anything, because the animal most likely needs antibiotics to fight off whatever caused the immune system deficiency in the first place.
Yeah, I agree with that. When you have all these wild animals at your house, you have to have a specific license from the state. So does the state require you to keep records of every animal, and you have to turn those in at the end of the year? Or
yes,
okay.
I'm actually state and federally licensed. Federally because of the birds, and I have to write a report for the Federal Fish and Wildlife for the birds, and I have to write 2 reports for Indiana DNR, 1 for birds and 1 for mammals. Every animal that comes to my door gets recorded, it gets a number, and at the end of the year, I have to write what was the condition of the animal on intake, why was the animal brought, injured, orphaned, sick. I have to write down what the vet recommended, and when the animal was released and where.
Yeah, that's one reason we're not able to handle those. We can only do the captive bred ones.
Yeah, our license only covers captive bred animals and our educational programs, so we cannot take in wild-born animals. I think I've said this on every show that we've done so far, and I will reiterate it. It's on our website too, but we still get phone calls about wild-born animals. Yeah, sometimes I'll give advice, sometimes I'll refer them to Katja, but I don't know. I don't know if they actually give you phone calls or not, but
I just tell them to go to the DNR website. They can figure out the closest rehab there.
I get plenty of calls, trust me.
I actually on our business phone, I don't answer it anymore because we get so many phone calls about wild-born animals. There's a raccoon in my dumpster. I don't know how to get it out. Well, they're a highly intelligent animal. Just put a 2x4 in there, man. They'll figure it out.
Yep.
That's
what I tell them.
That's the main question I get. There's a possum or a raccoon in my dumpster. I need to get it out. And yeah, well, put a 2x4 in there. They'll get out. Make sure it's secure, and they'll climb right out. They got in there, and yeah, of course they can't get out after the dumpster's been dumped. But if you put a stick or a 2x4 in there, it's gonna figure it out, definitely.
Well, the most I take in are usually orphaned babies, where with the possums it's usually hit by car or the dog got it.
Yeah.
Raccoons it's usually we killed the mom and now we got babies. Bunnies is usually, there's a bunny's nest in my yard and I really don't feel like doing anything to cover it or walk my dogs in the front yard instead of the back, just letting them out the back door. So can you take them? Mm-hmm. And bunnies are usually not orphaned. Bunnies are usually just, I take them out because I don't want to deal with the hassle.
Mm-hmm.
So I rehab usually 200 to 300 bunnies a year.
Oh, Lord, that's a lot.
You've been doing this for a while, too, haven't you, Katja?
How many years have you been doing this job?
8 years.
8 years.
Yep.
1,600
and my numbers rise every year.
1,600 bunnies.
At this point, I take in over 1,000 animals a year.
Woo.
Wow. Is there an experience in which you've had to analyze information and evaluated results to choose the best solution to a problem in regards to taking in wild animals? Like prioritizing and planning and and determining whether or not it's an animal that you can take in. Do you have the space for it? Stuff like that. Is it sick?
I keep certain spaces for each species.
Mm-hmm.
So, for instance, if I'm full on raccoons, that doesn't mean I can't take possums or bunnies.
Yeah.
Because each animal requires different kind of enclosures, different kind of setup. So I have spaces set away for each different type. For instance, I have a quarantine area just for mangy foxes,
Mm-hmm.
and I can take up to 3 foxes with mange that can go in that quarantine zone.
Okay.
But I can't take more than 3 with mange at a time.
All right.
Because I can take a mangy fox and put it anywhere near any other mammal because obviously the mites are contagious.
Yeah, of course.
We have a quarantine zone for sick animals where, say, for instance, it's possibly distemper. And so I don't want to put that in an area with other animals that could get affected by that. So we have quarantine zones. We have, like I said, different caging available for different kinds of animals. For instance, I have so many outdoor pens for raccoons and so many outdoor pens for possums and bunnies and all that. So I take in the amount of animals goes with my caging.
Yeah, I was out at your place a couple of years ago, and I remember that you had this beautiful
it has
raptor.
grown a lot. We now have 8.5 acres, and we're planning on adding another 2.5 acres, plus another barn.
Wow. Well, that's good. That's good. Can you name a time when your patience was tested and how you kept your emotions in check when that happened?
Why are all your questions like essay questions?
They're essay questions
Like
because I love essay questions. Okay, well, because I know that in this job, my patience gets tested a lot. Okay, I even taken in captive bred animals because we got Gamora, whose teeth were sawed off by her former owners with a Dremel in their garage, and they had the audacity to make several different claims to try and cover up their lie, and then somebody else got online and admitted that they cut off her canine teeth with a Dremel. That right there, that's when my patience was tested, and it was really hard to keep my emotions in check because I really wanted to strangle that bitch.
I have to look what I have in front of me, and a friend of mine taught me that actually. She said, don't worry about what happened to them, worry about what you have in front of you, and do what you can to fix it, if that makes sense to you.
Oh,
it does.
Because if I dwell on everything that gets done to these babies, I would just literally blow a gasket.
Especially
I had a lady, she found a hit-by-car raccoon, and she Googled it and gave him baby aspirin.
Oh, my God, she killed that thing. It bled out.
He had internal bleeding.
Mm-hmm. Aspirin thins
and
the
she
blood.
just gave him a blood thinner. So I let you guess what happened with that baby.
It died.
Yes, within 10 minutes of being here, he bled out in my hands. And the reason I know he died from internal bleeding is because his last release, when his bowels released, was all blood. So I explained to her that just because Google said it was okay, and baby aspirin might be okay for raccoons, having internal bleeding makes it not okay. Mm-hmm. I actually purchased a loop. Mm-hmm. So when I get animals that have potential internal bleeding, mm-hmm. I use the loop for pain versus giving them medications, just to ensure that I don't cause any extra internal bleeding.
Yeah,
and so far it has worked wonders, absolute wonders. I love that thing, and it's worth every penny.
Oh, what is it now?
What is it called?
It's a CC loop.
Okay, I'll have.
And you basically place it on the animal, and it does magnetic pulses that anti-inflammatory and pain relief.
All right.
Nice.
And when I put these on the animals, they just completely relax and enjoy the pulses. No animal has ever tried to take it off. They just lay there, and you can tell they are relaxing and enjoying the pulse of that loop.
Oh, that sounds very interesting. I'll have to.
We gotta get a couple of those for our animals.
Yeah, we should probably invest in a couple of those for our animals. How did you become interested in this field of work to begin with?
Okay, I fell in love with birds. I personally actually currently I have 2 African Greys in the blue fronted Amazon.
Oh, good, no.
And I used to take them to Avian and Exotic Animal Clinic and got their newsletter. And in the past, I had always donated to wildlife rehabilitators because I know they're not funded by the state, which a lot of people seem to believe.
Yeah.
And I was going to make a donation to Liz Hatton up in Westfield for the Birds of Indiana. And the first thing on her page was, we need more of us.
Yeah.
And I was at home. I had just quit working, and so I called her and I said, what would I need to do to become a rehabber? And so she invited me up to her place, and I ended up training with her for a year and a half to take care of birds. And then she pushed me into getting my own permit.
Hey, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that if you got the land for it.
I've seen a few
we
things.
didn't at the time. At the time, I was actually in Indianapolis, and it was actually the wildlife rehab that eventually landed us out here in Martinsville in the boondocks.
This sounds like a familiar story. We are we run ours out of our sanctuary at a Beech Grove, and and we're trying to buy a farm too out in the boondocks. So the story sounds definitely familiar.
We actually moved to Lebanon first, and then Lebanon told me I couldn't rehab there. And so we packed up again and moved down here to Martinsville.
Well, Lebanon is really weird. You have to have the USDA license in order to rehab in that area. So, yeah, that's why I decided not to move up there with our sanctuary, even though we're a nonprofit organization.
It wasn't that. They just didn't. It was a big thing, but I really didn't care anymore. And looking at what I have now and the way I was able to expand being out here, because we started off with 6 acres, and now at 8.5, and the second house and the barn, they did me a favor.
They did.
So I'm not too mad about it anymore.
Yeah, I remember when I came over, your raccoons for your educational programs were super curious, and they were crawling all over my legs, and they were so cute. I love them. So about your typical day, how early do you get up to start with the animals and stuff like that? You get up really early in the morning?
It depends on the time of the year. I've been pretty much working 18-hour days since March. It's finally slowing down, but during baby season, I usually get up at 6 in the morning is the first feeding, and then I basically feed all the way until 2 o'clock in the morning, around the clock, with maybe 30 minutes in between feedings.
So you can eat?
Because I usually have so many babies that when I'm done feeding, I can start all over.
Well, if you ever need any assistance, you can always call me and I'll come down and help you. And that sounds like it's a super stressful thing to just sit there and feed babies all day, and just you get 30 minutes to eat yourself. So it's like,
Well, and you gotta clean the totes. I clean the totes. I keep them in every feeding. So it's like mountains of laundry. My washer and dryer run pretty much 24/7.
Oh, snap. I just gave away a washer and dryer. I totally didn't even think about calling you to ask you if you wanted it. I gave it away to somebody who needed it.
And that's okay. I mean, we own our second set of washer and dryer since moving here 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Because I just put so much. I swear to God, sometimes they moan and groan at me and say, "Can we get a break?"
Yeah, I bet. I bet. My washer was doing this.
There's a lot of laundry. There's a lot of cleaning. A lot of, most of the babies in the beginning need to be stimulated. So that's all got to get done.
Yeah.
It's hard work is what it is. It sounds like all fun and games, but it's really not. And the contact with the animals is minimal.
Yeah.
They get fed, and the totes get cleaned, and that's it. And once they self-feeding, I only pick them up when I clean their cages to move them into a clean cage.
Yeah,
that's
and
it.
Stimulating the bowels
and
when they're too young.
Once they in pens, I don't touch them at all.
Yep.
They cling to the back wall. They let me do what I need to do, and that's it.
And that's what you're supposed to do. You're not supposed to cuddle the animals and hug on them.
Correct.
The point of rehabilitating them is to allow them to go back into the wild and not be used to human beings and
The
not approach
biggest
us.
thing is I have to keep the internal fear of humans intact.
Exactly.
The natural fear of humans needs to stay in. And unfortunately, the public doesn't understand why hand feeding a squirrel or raccoons or whatever is a bad thing. It is absolutely bad.
Exactly. Because
if these animals stop fearing us, they will attack us. And as funny as this might sound to you, a squirrel that is not scared of people can put you in the ER.
it can. And not only that, squirrels, raccoons, foxes, anything pretty much that mammals wise, they can be carry rabies and not even show signs. And with foxes and raccoons, they are rabies vector species. I'm not putting possums on this list because their body temperature is too cold.
They're not.
In order to get
vector
rabies.
species is foxes, skunks,
raccoons, and squirrels, correct? And bats, of course, because Indiana has a
no
large.
bats. Bats are, but not squirrels. Squirrels don't fall under vector species.
They don't fall under vector species, but they can get bit by a vector species and give rabies
Yeah,
to
they could.
humans.
But even under normal conditions, without having rabies, they can do a lot of damage, especially the little pine squirrels, the red ones.
Yes, my brother got bit
which
by
are
one.
really tiny, but they are so fast when they start biting you, they literally run up and down your body everywhere and just nip everywhere.
Sounds like Nakia.
It sounds like my Janet, actually, but my Janet is she's an obligate carnivore. She actually has, 4 fangs. They're filiform, and when she bites Tyler, she definitely leaves bigger scars than my foxes do.
Having flashbacks.
Yeah.
He has PTSD from getting attacked by that 2 pounds of bottled napalm.
Go and feed her and just hear
Raccoon
growling
bites
behind
are
the
even
microphone.
worse.
But
Nothing hurts worse than a raccoon bite.
Exactly.
They have a pressure bite to the bite, and they not only, even if they don't break skin or anything, it'll
tear your
you
muscles.
turn black and blue from the pressure they apply to the muscles and nerves under the skin, and it hurts like a mother.
Hey, we're not edited. You could say it.
No, raccoon bites are the worst.
I can see that.
When it comes to, normally I don't get bit. I just had a run-in with one by accident, and it wasn't the raccoon's fault. But
I'm sure I'll get bitten by one soon.
It hurts.
So I'll let you know when I get bit.
From what I was, I just Googled it while we were talking, and the bite force of a raccoon is 8,000 pounds per square inch, and they can easily crush diamonds. Wow.
What?
Yeah, that is what it says on this freaking website, and it's a government website.
Yeah.
Man, I gotta read into that one.
Because their bite is almost like, I don't want to say pit bull, but it's as much, they can apply so much pressure because their jaws are so small. It's almost like a large bird. Because, for instance, a Molakin cockatoo has 2,400 psi of pressure in his bite.
Wow.
But it's because of the size of the beak, and that's how they can apply so much force. And the same goes for the raccoon, because their mouths are so narrow, they can apply a lot of pressure with that.
Jeez, and I think foxes are only like 90.
That's because a fox's jaws are very fragile. They can't really. The reason why I say that foxes don't really normally hunt things larger than their head is because their jaw is not powerful enough. They can shatter their jaw if they bite something that's larger than their head. And a lot of people are like, "Fox attacked my baby," and no, a dingo didn't attack your baby. Freaking coyote probably did, but and if a coyote or anything like that is coming near your house,
they don't.
It's because it might have rabies. If they're coming near humans, it either has rabies or humans have been feeding it.
Yeah, we're not talking about like rabbit animals. They'll just go after anything.
Yeah, rabbit animals will just go after anything. We saw a video just last night of a gray fox attacking a woman, a rabid gray fox. They ended up catching it, and they euthanized it, tested its brain matter for rabies, because currently that's the only way to test for rabies.
Yep.
One day we will figure out a way to test for rabies without having to kill an animal. One day there will be a cure for rabies. But right now, there's not.
So.
And Louis Armstrong created a rabies vaccine, and that was how long ago? It was over 100 years ago.
Louis Armstrong.
Yeah. And let's see.
A magician or
No.
musician or something?
No. You need to read more, Tyler, and stay away from blogs that aren't.
I always laugh when people message me and says, there's a fox in my neighborhood and he's going to eat my cat or my dog. And it's like, no, he don't.
Mm-mm.
Largest thing a fox eats or chases is a rat.
Yeah,
Anything
a
past
rabbit.
a rat is too
chickens.
big for a fox.
Yeah,
well, baby rabbits.
Baby
I don't
rabbits.
even think a fox would tangle with an adult rabbit,
No.
because adult rabbits can do quite a bit of damage too.
Yeah.
I got under too. I got that one pet fox I took from a petting zoo last year.
Yeah, and we have you been bit by that fox yet?
No, because I'm smart. I understand that he doesn't want to be touched.
Yep.
He loves me. He shows me that by wagging his tail when he sees me coming and gets all excited.
A happy piece
and
everywhere.
I play fetch with him, but I don't try to touch him. He doesn't want to be touched. And who can blame him?
If he doesn't want to be touched, here's a nice experiment you can actually do, and you tell us later if it works. When I got Rocket, my white domesticated fox, he came from an abuse situation. Now Rocket took 9 months for me to gain his trust, took 11 months for River to gain his trust, took us 2 years before we could pick him up without bite gloves. And Rocket is one of those types of animals that I had to create a behavioral modification therapy program, and this is still experimental. So this is an experiment that I used with him, and maybe you can use it on your baby, see if it works. What I did was I laid down on the ground in the enclosure, and I covered my face up. I laid on my stomach, covered my face up, and I would make noises under my arm, and that made the fox curious and wanted to touch me. And what he did was he would pounce. He did the little fox pounce on my back, and River got me some good videos of that, and of me just laying there on the patio stones in the fox enclosure, just making a bunch of weird noises, trying to get this fox's attention. And eventually, and that was the very first time he touched me on his own. He came up and he wanted to play. He was having fun. So I sucked my arms into my jacket and I was wiggling my fingers in the sleeve. And he was just pouncing and he was sticking his nose up in the sleeve and licking my fingers. And that right there was the largest breakthrough I've ever had with an animal that was completely terrified of human beings and had nothing. He wanted nothing to do with him. When I first got him, it took me. I took him to 2 veterinarian behaviorists, and I talked to multiple behaviorists at zoos. They all told me to euthanize him. They said he will never be an educational animal. He will never want to be around humans. Guess who loves to be around humans the most now? Rocket.
Yeah.
Rocket absolutely loves to be around humans the most. He stole my friend's wallet when they came over to visit. He stuck his nose right in his back pocket, took off with his wallet, peed on it. But we were talking earlier about rabbits. That is a main issue. We seen a lot of people trying to take wild rabbits from the wild, I ran the mom over with the lawnmower and there was babies in the yard. What should I do? We got an email about 3 or 4 days ago about a woman who found some wild rabbits in her yard, and they died overnight because people won't stop touching them. They kill them with kindness, is what we were talking about earlier. So what should somebody do if they find wild baby rabbits without a mom?
Well, mom for once only comes twice a day. So in general, people never see mom by the nest. Mm-hmm. She only stays for 1 to 2 minutes to nurse, and that's it. And that is by design, because she doesn't want to put her scent on the baby so other animals can't find them.
World's best mother right there.
That's the world's best mother right there.
I'll see you in 12 hours.
I'll see you in 12 hours.
Don't die.
Don't die on me.
And that's actually one of the other mistakes people make, that when they feed them every 2 hours. Ooh. You can only feed a bunny twice a day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If you feed, overfeeding is as bad as not, well, actually worse than not feeding at all.
Yeah, they can.
And if you feed a
get
baby
gas.
bunny every 2 hours, you kill him.
Yeah, it's a.
Uh,
It can create
so-
bloat, and their stomachs can explode. Something like that.
if you're absolutely sure that mommy bunny is dead or hasn't come back, and that's actually a way to check check the babies either check them first thing in the morning and flip them over. If their bellies are full, that means mom has been back, and just put the bunny back and let it be.
Mm-hmm.
If the bunnies are skinny, due to the fact that they only get fed twice a day, if mom misses one feeding, they look really skinny.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's the case, then call a rehabber.
Yeah, and
Take them to a rehabber. Do not attempt to try to feed them anything. I don't care about KMR. I don't care about Espalac. I don't care about goat's milk. Just don't feed them anything. Call a rehabber and get them to a rehabber ASAP.
yeah, I always tell people, do not feed the babies. Do not feed anything until you speak to the rehabber, and the rehabber will definitely give you more information on wild-born animals. When it comes to captive bred animals, we do a fasting day when we rescue them. That way we know, hey, this animal didn't eat a freaking sock or a pair of underwear before it was surrendered to us, so we fast them for 24 hours to make sure that they're not going to throw something up or they don't have a bowel obstruction. So if we feed them, it's just going to make it worse.
Yeah, like that one that ate like a pair of panties and threw up on the
porch. Yeah.
And then the other thing is, in most cases, wildlife, when they find it, is dehydrated, and you cannot feed a dehydrated animal. It needs to be rehydrated first.
Yeah.
It needs to be warmed up and rehydrated. And if you don't know how to do that properly, odds are that you're just going to kill it.
Yeah.
And then my absolute favorite is finding baby birds and feeding them worms.
Oh, my
Please,
freaking God.
not all birds eat worms. That's a fact. There is so many different kinds of birds out there, it will make your head spin.
Mm-hmm.
I actually identify them by the beak.
Mm-hmm.
The beak tells me what they eat.
Exactly.
The layman would have no clue.
Yeah.
So when they find baby birds, please don't feed them worms or bread. Oh, my God.
I have diagrams that
not
I
give-
send people. This is
Do
how
not
you tell
give
what
a bird bread ever,
Yeah.
because bread expands when it gets wet. If you fill a bird's crop with bread and give him water, it's going to rupture his crop.
Yeah, pretty much like
Because
if you
it
stuff your neck full of it and just a balloon and just blow it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
And the other thing I really would love for people to understand is stop putting our bird feeders in the summer. Birds do not require feeding in the summer. I really don't care if you like watching them through your window. All your bird feeder is a disease breeding ground.
It is.
You get one sick bird to a feeder that has 20 birds sitting on it. Now you have 20 sick birds. So stop being selfish and stop putting these feeders out. And I think I have a possum coming.
I have said this so many times. Do not feed the wild animals, and a lot of people, they don't believe me. They'll stick out hummingbird nectar and bird
This way.
seed.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
so you have a possum being dropped off right now?
No, my grandson actually just came home from school. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're fine.
Is that his nickname?
I know.
Possum?
I know. But yeah, people really need, in general, nobody should feed any wildlife during the summer months. There is plenty of food out for them to find.
Mm-hmm.
And it brings me back to the whole nutrition as well. If the birds or even mammals, if they are forced to forage, they will forage multiple things and eat a variety of berries and nuts and greens and whatever. If you feed them, they will only eat what you put out there.
Yeah, and
So,
sometimes they'll overfeed.
Bird feeders actually are one of the reasons why we have such an insect overload, because all the insect-eating birds are eating from bird feeders, which means they are not hunting insects.
And also, I want to touch base on the hummingbird feeders. Bees will get stuck in there, and we already have an issue with the honeybee being on the endangered species list now. And honeybees will get stuck in these bird feeders because they're being attracted to it by the scent. And I am not a big fan of the fact that people want to put these bird feeders out either. I've literally... my neighbor used to feed squirrels.
Now the birds are not pollinating, which is what they're supposed to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
hummingbirds who eat at hummingbird feeders are not flying from flower to flower and picking up the pollen and stuff that they normally would and drop it all over the place.
Well,
so you are not helping anything. You are actually being detrimental to our whole cycle.
Yes, they are
if you will.
It's very detrimental to the ecosystem to feed wildlife, because not only do birds track the pollen, foxes will track the pollen as well. When they walk through the field of flowers, they will transfer the pollen to another field of flowers, and that's another way that we get pollination. And
exactly.
And when the bees go from flower to flower, that's also another thing. Honeybees are extremely important to the ecosystem. If they go completely extinct, we will all die. Okay, it starts with one species.
What people don't realize is that infringing or sticking their fingers into Mother Nature is actually very detrimental to our whole ecosystem. Mm-hmm. Because it throws everything out of whack for the selfish reason that you can't feed animals or watch the birds through the window. Sit outside and watch them fly from tree to tree. That's what I do.
The other day there was a news article that came out in Australia. NPR reported on it, where there are scientists that are planning to bring the Tasmanian tiger back from extinction. And honestly, the Tasmanian tiger should have never been driven to extinction to begin with.
Yeah, that was our bad.
They were the only marsupial mammal on the planet. Like they were extremely important to the ecosystem in Australia, and without them, the dingoes started to get out of control.
Aren't all marsupials like mammals though?
They are the only ones with the pouch. That was like in the classification.
Oh, okay.
They carried their babies in a pouch like a kangaroo does.
Yeah, because in the comments everyone's gonna be like, kangaroos are mammals.
Kangaroos are mammals, but no, they're marsupial carnivores is what I meant to say. But whatever.
God, I'm glad kangaroos aren't carnivores. Jesus,
my dog's like that kangaroo food, the kangaroo meat food, but like, but we should never be put into the position where we have to use genetics and science to bring an extinct mammal back from the dead because we did something stupid and hunted them to extinction and drove them to extinction by overpopulating with human beings and deforestation. And the fact that we have issues right now is foxes were imported into Australia to take care of the rodent situation, and then they stopped hunting the foxes, and now there's dingoes are being hunted to extinction now, and the dingoes they're the ones taking care of the foxes now because the thylacine is gone. And so people are hunting dingoes to extinction, and I will straight be really angry and start going off on this if I keep going. But but dingoes are extremely important to the ecosystem in Australia. Dingoes, they migrated down from Papua New Guinea. Their genetics are almost exactly the same as a New Guinea singing dog, and the Highland wild dog. So when you get into the science of things, we should never be put in a position where we have to use science to bring an animal back from extinction. That should never happen, whether it be an animal or an insect. These animals are here for a reason. And they're not here for humans to destroy because we feel like they are in our way.
I mean, it's like we're kind of like an invasive species that has become self-aware.
We are the invasive species that is
has achieved self-awareness.
We have achieved self-awareness.
You got my vote. I never understood why man made himself
man has made themselves a god. They have become the decider of life and death on this planet when it's not our place. And
left unchecked.
We have been left unchecked. Okay, aliens, please come and invade us because, like, some of these people, they just need to be taken out. Aliens won't come here because humans are so stupid. They are too busy killing each other. They're too busy killing the species on the planet, and there's no harmony. And, yeah, there are some people that agree with us, but there are more people that will disagree. And...
Unfortunately, yes. But it's... I see both sides of that coin, and we have the ones who don't care.
And we have ones.
And then you have the bleeding hearts who care so much, and all roads to hell are paved with good intentions.
Exactly. If I'm going to go see King Yama, it's going to be at the death of an animal.
those, to me, are just as bad as the ones who butcher or kill animals, because they're doing it under the guise of love.
Yeah.
And that's just not true.
Exactly. There are.
I get so many calls where people tell me, "Oh, just tell me how to take care of it. I'll keep it." And it's like, well, it's illegal for you to keep.
Exactly.
And I'm not telling you how to take care of it because that is not what I do.
It's against.
Besides,
against the law.
what makes you think that I can explain to you on the phone in 20 minutes
how to properly care for an animal?
What I had to
take 8 years to
train for a year and a half for, and had to take tests and have to go to continued education for, read medical books, read books on the body structure, the skeletal structure, all that stuff, books on the body temperatures of the different species,
scientific
all this
studies
stuff.
galore.
How can I explain that to you in 20 minutes on the phone?
I have a Google Drive that I every scientific study that I read, I throw it in the Google Drive, and I will reread them. And I have some that I've printed out, hundreds of them. And when it came to, like, fennec foxes and pale foxes, they are not very common to be sold as pets, but people do sell them as pets, and they're expensive. A pale fox can run anywhere from $4,000 to $8,000. We are the only sanctuary in the United States that has one. San Diego Zoo doesn't even have one, so I got one up on them there. I'm so excited about that. I'll brag about that all day. But pale foxes, there are only 4 scientific studies out there in the world about pale foxes in the wild because they are so elusive. And those 4 scientific studies, I had to literally go based on fennec fox studies too, because they're very similar in structure and genetics, but it's like the species diverged and split off at some point. But when it came to taking him to the vet and keeping him warm while they were getting under anesthesia and when they got neutered and spayed, I had to use a science experiment. I used those little hand warmers that we have during the wintertime for our gloves to keep them warm. We put them in the ears so their bodies won't drop too low. And, we were taught that, using that kind of stuff, or hot water bottles when they're babies, stuff like that. So if they lose their parents, because, when you get captive bred animals, they're pulled from their parents when they're little and they're bottle fed. Any decent breeder that breeds fennec foxes or pale foxes, they're going to pull the babies at like 10 days, and they'll bottle feed them from there. And that same goes for red foxes. And there is no law against selling them before 8 weeks, because 4 weeks is the minimum you have to send a fox species to its new owner, because that's when they can do the imprinting. And those people that get these animals as pets and they let them interact with their cats or dogs or their children before themselves, those are the animals that never bond with you. Those are the animals that we end up with, because they have never created a bond with the adults in the house or the humans in the house as opposed to the other animals. There's a huge issue with, they're like, oh, I thought this was
not to mention most of these people don't even know what they're getting themselves into.
Exactly. They're like, oh, I thought it was going to be a cat or a dog or a combination of both. I'm like, no, it's a fox.
People don't even know how to take care of dogs, it seems like.
Yeah, 90% of people don't even know how to properly take care of their dog, okay? Dogs and foxes.
Or cat.
Or cat. Cats are obligate carnivores. Stop feeding them food with rice in it, okay? Cats do best on a raw diet.
Don't tell me your cat is a vegetarian.
I cannot stand it when people feed their dogs and cats a vegetarian diet. Okay, yeah, in the wild, they're going to eat a little bit of grass here and there, and that's usually when their stomach is upset. If they ate something that doesn't agree with them, they're going to eat some plant matter to make themselves throw up because their body can't handle it. And so they have to puke. They have to. It's one of those things. I added a new food into our. We get donations and stuff. So normally we take what we can get, and I use Solid Gold's quail for sensitive stomachs. And my cat can't handle it. It's supposed to be for sensitive stomachs, but he pukes it up every single time he eats it, like 5 minutes later. So I have to put him on a different type of food. And you know, this is like a high quality grain free bag of cat food that's like, you know, 4 pounds of it is like $65. And Akana, Merrick, you know, those are the ones that we feed the most. Akana, Merrick, Instinct, something raw bites. You got to dehydrated meat. But basically, we do a lot of shopping at My Pet Carnivore. And we get our own.
Yep.
We get our own meat too. We get chickens and stuff donated to us. We get chickens and rabbits donated.
Well, that'll be a topic for like 3 or 4 episodes down.
Yeah, we're gonna do one on species specific diets later on. So we don't want to spoil the fun for our next ones. You got any questions for Katja?
One thing I did want to ask you is if you ever had like a favorite rehab, one that had the best memories for you. I'd say like it had a really good ending, or you had a really fun time learning about it.
There's so many.
I can imagine.
I mean, like,
I can imagine.
For instance, I posted it on my page a couple of weeks ago. I got this baby raccoon that was hit by a car, a small baby, and a gentleman brought it to me at 7:30 in the morning. The poor thing was profusely bleeding from his head, and he was just covered in blood. It couldn't stand up, and I just grabbed the raccoon, told him I'd get his information in a text message, and chased into the nursery to to stop the bleeding and get him better. Made a full recovery.
Oh,
nice.
That night, he was standing up.
Oh, wow.
Which absolutely blew my mind. And I was literally in tears because I just look and it's, wow, he's standing up already. Yes.
That would make me happy.
Last fall, a lady had called me from Camp Atterbury, and she said there was a raccoon and she thinks it's dying and she doesn't know what to do. And so I arranged for transport. One of my transport people went up there and picked him up, brought him here, and he was laying on his side. And when I picked him up, he was really, really weak. His bowels released, and I noticed there was a bunch of berries in there.
Oh, he ate something.
And I realized that he had eaten poisonous berries. So I turned around and flushed out his system and gave him charcoal. And then I had to hand feed him with a syringe for days. I would make him a mushed food thingy in the blender, and so I could syringe feed it. And the first time he stood up on his own, I literally cried.
Oh,
it was just the most. He made a full recovery, and he was released this spring.
Oh.
But it was just the most awful, wonderful feeling. I can't even describe, because I mean, I literally had to hand feed him with the syringe every day, numerous times a day, and then I had to massage him so he would go to the bathroom, because he couldn't do that on his own either. And so having him make a full recovery is amazingly rewarding.
It is. This is a very rewarding job, even in captive bred animals, and I can only imagine how rewarding it would be to let an animal like that go you know, after spending months of rehabilitating it, and how it
watching them run off and do their thing is just, it's like with the bald eagle I picked up this spring. I picked her up on the 10th of March.
A bald eagle.
Out of ice cold water.
Yeah, this is what I want to ask you
about. I never forget how cold that water was. And she was with us here for rehab for quite a bit. And then she went to Nashville to the flight pen. And we picked her back up for release in June. And it was just amazing watching her soar in the sky again.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I remember following that story.
It was...
I love me some predators. Okay, raptor birds are my favorite. Eventually, I will have me, you know, some kind of owl or something for educational programs and stuff like that. But It's one of those things where I like to spend my time learning about the animals before actually getting animals and taking care of them. So I get people call me up all the time. Can you take this species of animal? No, I don't have any experience.
I don't know
with that
how
species.
it works with your permit, but all the bird permits go through Fish and Wildlife.
Yeah, in
and
Indiana,
only certain people can have owls, hawks, things like that as educational.
Eurasian eagle owls are not a native species, so we are allowed to have them here.
Now, there is one thing that's always wanted to know about this one. How the hell do you catch an eagle?
If they're not native, then yes, you can have them. If they're native to Indiana, then...
She fell in the water, didn't she? If the eagle fell in the water, then they had to kind of fish it out with a net, right?
I don't know. Ask her.
Did you
Katja, how'd you catch a bird?
How did you catch that eagle anyway? Was it in the water?
Well, she was hit by a car while eating roadkill on the road. How you miss seeing a giant bird like that sitting in the road is beyond me, but hey.
I've seen somebody hit a falcon, hawk, a red-tailed hawk on the side of the road. They hit it on purpose because it was eating a dead carcass, and they swerved to hit that bird on purpose. I was behind them. I had to toss a blanket over it and put it in a cat cage that I had in my car. And I had to call somebody to take it, and there were only like 2 raptor rehabbers in the state at that time. It was over a decade ago, so there weren't very many.
No, anyway, I had a net, and however, I didn't net her to get her up the hill. What I made her do is I made her grab the rim of the net with her claws, and then I picked her up with the net, just hanging on the net, and carried her over to the bank. And then I used the net to flip her over, because she was trying to attack me. She was going into attack mode, was laying on her back and getting me with her claws. So I flipped her over, and then I put a blanket over her, tucked her under my armpit, and climbed up the embankment.
Yeah, have you ever got any decent scratches from a predator bird like that?
No. Yeah. And I don't want to.
Their claws are extremely long and sharp. I would never want to
they can go straight through my arm. No, I'm not. I'm very well trained on how to handle these kind of birds, because I have to hand feed them and give medications and stuff, and sometimes chest injections. So I trained very well to be able to do this without them coming anywhere near me at any point in time.
And if they're say you get one that has a broken leg, how would you handle that when they don't want you to touch them? I've seen.
Well, my husband holds them.
Okay, hubby holds them while you take care of them.
Yeah. Yes.
So I was.
That's not something I would attempt by myself. There has to be a person who restrains the animal for me to bandage or even do a thorough exam.
Yeah.
There is no way I would go anywhere near claw beaks and such without having someone restraining the animal.
Yeah, that kind of sounds familiar. I think Tyler gets a lot of the hatred of our animals because I make him hold them down while I'm doing the treatment. So I'm the one making them better. And in their eyes, he's the bastard that's holding them down and pinning them to the ground or, making sure they're not going to bite us or putting a muzzle on their head. It's one of those things where they're like holding this inner resentment. They're like, I'm going to kill you one day. And then there's Nakia, who's never experienced any of that stuff. She just can't stand him because he takes my time away from her. And I can sit there and hand feed her chicken hearts, and he gets growled at and attacked.
Yep.
Well, I think we're actually kind of running along here. So
I think we are about done with this episode. So is there anything else you want to touch base on before we leave?
Yeah, is there anything you want people to know that we haven't gone over yet, Katja?
Well, like I said, just that please stop feeding wildlife during the summer. In the winter, it's okay, but during the summer, these animals really don't need a helping hand. Yep. There's plenty of food sources out there, and they actually need to forage, A, to keep their minds occupied, because boredom is a thing too, and B, because of the variety that on food they would get when they forage, and that goes for mammals and birds. And for everything that's holy, stop giving wildlife medications. I don't care what medications it is, and I don't care what Google says, because Google has never made an expert out of anyone. don't.
I keep
Just
saying,
don't.
Don't get on. Okay, if you're gonna look at stuff on Wikipedia, you gotta look at the references. If you're pulling stuff from Wikipedia, look at the references, look at scientific studies and stuff like that. But do not feed these animals. This is one of those things where I
the
try to
other
stress.
thing is stop telling people what's wrong with an animal by a picture.
Yeah, I can't stand that.
That's a good one.
That is a good one.
If your friend posts a wild animal on social media and you write underneath, oh, it has distemper, I would love to know what your qualification is to make that determination.
I always require a video.
Last year, winter, I took in at least 6 raccoons where people were screaming left and right they have distemper. Each and every single one of them had an upper respiratory infection because we had such low temperatures, and they get a cold just like we do. Yeah. And every one of them made a full recovery, and every one of them was released. So stop telling people what is wrong with an animal by a picture or a video, because there is no way that you could possibly know.
I always say I need a video, not a photo, and in the video I give them, multiple things, and then I say, this is where you need to go. This is where you need to take the animal. Do not give the animal food.
I need to see the animal.
Yeah.
I need to physically examine the animal. Yeah. There is so many things like, because people always say if it has snotty eyes or snotty nose, it's distemper. No, it's not always distemper. A common cold causes a snotty nose too. Eye infection causes goopy eyes. Yep. So you can't go by what you're looking at unless you are a vet and you are trained to know what the disease is, because distemper comes with a lot of other things.
It does.
And most of the time they're not there. And now I really have to go because my possum is here.
Well,
that works out pretty well. So.
Well, give that the possum a hello from us, and we will hopefully talk to you later, and hope you have a fantastic
Yeah, I
day.
actually need to talk to you guys anyway.
Okay. Well, sounds like a plan. You know where we're at.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it, okay?
Oh, yeah. Thanks for coming on with us. We'll talk to you later.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.
And that should do it for the end of episode 3 of the Wizard of Paws podcast. I'd like to once again send a nice little thank you for Katja for coming on, taking time out of her super busy day. And honestly, I think we're really going to have to bring her back on because, yeah, we probably could have gone for...
We probably could have gone for like 3 or 4 hours on everything that we could touch.
Easy.
And that still wouldn't touch everything, honestly. So we appreciate you guys for taking the time to listen to us, and I hope to see or hear your comments. If you would like to know the DNR website to look up a list of wildlife rehabbers in Indiana, you can email us at contact.info@wizardofpawswildlife.org, and we will respond to your email, and in our signature is the DNR list of wildlife rehabilitators in the state.
Yeah, that's easy to find.
It's pretty easy to find, but if you have questions, you've got captive bred wildlife you need to surrender, or if you have want to get a hold of Katja, we can also get you guys in contact with Katja as well.
Yeah, if you ever need to get in contact with us, or if you have information you might want to hear on a different episode, or know someone that you might want to know a little bit more about a certain job in wildlife, just send us a message on our link tree at Wizard of Paws Wildlife. And of course, if you enjoy what we do and would like to help support the animals and the show, feel free to join our Patreon at Wizard of Paws Wildlife. There you can get behind the scenes photos, videos, get early access to some episodes. And we're also working on some kind of like a treat program, but I'm still trying to put that together.
Yeah, look for that in the future, because our Wizard of Paws bakery should have some pretty good stuff coming up soon. So Wizard of Paws Bakery on Facebook, correct?
Yep, and that should do it. I would like to say a thank you to Alan, who does a great job editing our shows and all the other shows on the All Indiana Podcast Network. So you might want to check some of those out too. But that's going to do it for us. So we will see you guys next time.
Have a fantastic week.